Good morning. I'm coming to you from Siloam Missionary Baptist Church, located in Rougemont, North Carolina, where the Reverend Wayne Johnson is pastor. I will be going over the Sunday school lesson for July 18, 2021, which is entitled Nehemiah Combats Derision and Danger. My name is Charlotte Timberlake. The scripture lesson text will be coming from Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 through 9, and it reads, But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth, and took great indignation, and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an inn in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth, and conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem, and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God, and set a watch against them day and night because of them. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. The golden text. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God, and set a watch against them day and night because of them. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 9. Today's aim, facts, to realize that those who speak up for the Lord will be ridiculed by others. Principle, to show that God will bless and empower those who absorb the ridicule of the enemy. Application, to determine to seek the applause of heaven rather than the accolades of man. Introducing the lesson. Nehemiah left his royal position as the king's cupbearer in Persia to go to Jerusalem when he heard that the walls around the city had been broken down and lay in ruins. When he arrived in Jerusalem, however, he immediately met with opposition from those who did not want to see Jerusalem rebuilt and refortified. Developing the lesson. Number 1, praying through ridicule. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. News that Nehemiah was in Jerusalem to rebuild the walls was not welcomed by key people in powerful positions. Among those who were angry about Nehemiah's construction project was Sanballat, an important political figure who would later serve as governor of Samaria. Sanballat set out to oppose the rebuilding project as soon as he learned what Nehemiah was doing. He began by accusing Nehemiah of rebelling against the king, chapter 2, verse 19. This accusation had no merit because Nehemiah had the blessing from the king of Persia to rebuild the walls. Sanballat refused to allow Nehemiah to work in peace, however, and resorted to ridiculing the entire project. Sanballat realized that by himself he would not be able to prevent the Jews from rebuilding the wall, so he enlisted the help of his allies, which included the army of Samaria. Along with Tobiah the Ammonite, he mocked the Jews for thinking they could complete the wall and offer sacrifices of thanksgiving for it. Nehemiah responded to this verbal assault by praying to the Lord and asking for his help. Number 2, working through ridicule. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 6 through 9. Nehemiah and his people were undeterred and continued to build the wall. Soon they had the wall built to half its height because, quote, the people had a mind to work, end quote. Word reached Sanballat, Tobiah, and the other enemies of the Jews that they still continued work on the wall, and their anger increased. Do not expect the enemy to go away just because you are faithful in praying. Satan is a relentless adversary. As the wall continued to be built, Sanballat and his allies rallied around one another, determined to stop the Jews from completing their task. Nehemiah and the Jews responded to this relentless attack from the enemy by turning to the Lord in continual prayer. They prayed night and day for God to protect them. Their homeland was still suffering, but they believed they were pleasing the Lord by refortifying. We will now go over the questions in the back of the lesson. Question number 1. What 3 leaders allied against Nehemiah? The answer: we first meet Sanballat in chapter 2. He is called, quote, the Horonite, end quote, verse 10, and apparently was the leader of an influential ethnic group in the region of Judea. He is often mentioned in tandem with Tobiah the Ammonite and Geshem the Arabian, chapter 2, verse 19, chapter 4, verse 7, and chapter 6, verse 1. Together, these leaders and their peoples constituted a formidable force that rose up in opposition against Nehemiah and the Jews. Question number 2. What made Sanballat react in anger? The answer: but now that actual progress had been made, extensive details are given in chapter 3, he reacted in shock and indignation. Quote, he was wroth, end quote, chapter 4, verse 1, and he launched a tirade of mockery. Question number 3. What sarcastic opinion did Tobiah voice about Jerusalem's wall? The answer: Tobiah voiced his considered opinion that the new wall the Jews were building was so fragile that even a fox could knock it down just by walking on it. Question number 4. What did Nehemiah do when he heard of the mockery? The answer: instead, Nehemiah took the matter to God. Question number 5. What did Nehemiah want God to do with the enemy's taunts? The answer: and so that is exactly what Nehemiah requested. Quote, turn their reproach upon their own head, end quote. The Hebrew for, quote, reproach, end quote, is stronger than what the English word might convey. Nehemiah wanted his adversaries' scorn, their taunts, to boomerang back on them. Question number 6. What did he not want God to do? The answer: the one thing Nehemiah did not want was to see mockers' actions get swept under the rug. Question number 7. How was Nehemiah's prayer answered? The answer: Nehemiah's prayer was answered in the most telling way. The work went on, proving the impotence of the enemy's taunts. Question number 8. How did the enemies react to the continued progress in rebuilding? The answer: not surprisingly, when Sanballat and his cronies heard that the building was going ahead despite their taunts and that the gaps were being systematically filled in, they were furious. The time for mere mockery was over. Now they were going to have to do something about it. The enemies made plans together to march on Jerusalem and stop the rebuilding effort by force. Question number 9. How did Nehemiah and his people react to the new threat? The answer: the response of Nehemiah and his people to this new threat is wonderful in its simplicity. Quote, "Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God." End quote. Question number 10. What additional step did they take after praying? The answer: yet their dependence on God did not allow them to be lackadaisical or neglectful of their own responsibilities. From this point on, they, quote, "set a watch," end quote, that is, posted a 24-hour guard against any enemy activity. I will now go over the practical points for the lesson. Number 1, God's people can expect opposition when they are doing God's work. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 1. Number 2, God's enemies underestimate his power and the strength of his love for his people. Verse 2. Number 3, the best way to respond to threats is always with prayer. Verses 3 through 5. Number 4, united perseverance in God's work fights off the discouragement our enemies seek to sow. Verse 6. Number 5, threats, confusion, and discord are tools Satan uses to hinder God's work. Verses 7 through 8. Number 6, we defeat the devil's plans when we stay connected to God in prayer and stay alert to the enemy's schemes. Verse 9. In summary, Satan tried to attack Nehemiah and his group 3 ways. The first way was through derision, which is mockery and ridicule. The second way, discouragement, that the project would be a complete failure. And the third way, threats, stop the rebuilding by force. However, Nehemiah and his group refused to buckle under the pressure of Sanballat and Tobias's vicious attacks. They completed the wall in only 52 days. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15. This was an amazing achievement considering the obstacles they faced on a minute-by-minute basis. The key to their accomplishment was that they were doing it for the Lord and trusting Him completely to help them finish what they had started. Opposition, especially when laced with mockery and ridicule, can be ruinously discouraging, but we need not let it be. If instead of getting wrapped up in the taunting, we look to God in His steady power, we can press on with what He wants us to do and bring glory to Him. There is much that can be learned from Nehemiah's example. We should use the ability that God gives, work hard to complete the task, be vigilant against the enemy's attacks, and above all, trust in God for success. We must remember that no tactic used by Satan can tear down the wall of faith that surrounds those who trust the Lord. This will conclude the lesson for this morning. Thank you for listening. May God bless you.